Do we need more of that? Is it time to look outside the normal petri dish of former governors or congressmen and women for the next leader of this country? Let's ask Alexandra Smith and Joshua Nass and Katie Pavlich. Katie, what do you think?
Look, I think that he has some really good ideas and proposals, but I'm not so sure that at a time when the IRS is under scrutiny for a whole host of issues and when members of Congress, quite frankly, are trying to get rid of the IRS in some cases, that the IRS commissioner could make a successful run at president. But he does make some good points when it comes to politicians constantly running for re-election, and therefore they don't necessarily have the principles that they once had a couple years ago because they want to get re-elected rather than necessarily carry out the business of the people. But I think he brings up some other valid points about tax reform as well. So I don't think he'll be successul in his run, but I would hope that he starts a conversation between the other viable candidates.
He started, Alexander, one of the things I did, kind of make fun of him on his pitch. I'm from the IRS and I'm here to help. But he was endorsing all but shutting the IRS down with a simpler consumption tax, maybe keep the top rate, lower down a little bit, but that it would be a whole new simplified tax code. And that resonated with a lot of people. What do you think?
Well, from a millennial perspective, we know that the research tells us that millennials tend to be skeptical of all the bigs out there. Big banks, big corporations, big institutions like the IRS.
You also tend to be very selfish, which I admire. Right.
Well, I mean, I think from a millennial's perspective, we know that millennials are inherently skeptical of these institutions because we've never seen them work in our lifetime. What millennials want to see is a big, bold leader who isn't afraid to take on the challenges of today, even if it's not always politically correct.
Joshua, you're here, and we were here during the break here, and this notion that we do go to that conventional, and that's just maybe human nature, political nature, mainstream media nature, so we don't give a guy like that maybe the due he deserves. What do you think?
I agree with that, and I think that's rather unfortunate. Frankly, I think this is a new, fresh guy with fresh ideas and proposals. And when it comes to our field, yeah, it's deep right now. But the more candidates, the merrier. More bold, fresh ideas.
So you as a young guy have no problem with an IRS guy, former OMB guy. That's kind of the establishment as you get.
Quite to the contrary, Neil, actually. As a very simple man, I need to see the tax code reformed. Simplicity is the key.
So
and he's an advocate.
You're not saying this because you're afraid to criticize the IRS on a show. Watch my nose.
That might be part of it.
That might be what. Okay, fine. Katie, where does this go, though? I always think with guys like that, maybe they've been Herman Cainized. By that I mean that the different or unusual characters are the ones in which we pounce. And a guy like this, even if he showed signs of political life, would be quickly dismissed. What do you think?
Well, this is the problem with politics, right? I mean, we want someone who's not a politician to run for public office, and it would be great to have someone who's not necessarily a politician running for president. But when they get out on the campaign trail, we expect them to act like politicians, because if they give the wrong answer or say something the wrong way, then well, maybe we should. But I think that he's going to have a really hard time when it comes to actually getting his legs under him. But again, he's going to stoke debate about tax reform, which I actually think will be a big issue in 2016 for the debate stage.
But he's also talking about a one-term thing. Now, Josh, the one-term thing is a great idea, but if he's not seeking it, someone else will, and everyone's attention is going to be focused on the guy who's going to replace him, right?
Absolutely. In terms of how realistic it is that a guy like this is going to become the nominee or really make any waves whatsoever, it's not that realistic. But you know what? Given the digital and social media age we're living in, I think his ideas will. And I think we all ought to be hoping that he's going to make a run for it.
What do you make of that, Alexander, that the idea of a one-term thing, it's altruistic, maybe some say naive, but it could change the way we focus on getting things done if there's not the specter of running for office again?
I mean, I think millennials absolutely want to see someone who's willing to take on these big challenges regardless of the political consequences. And I think that that's why so many young conservatives are so excited by the deep bench that we have on the GOP side this time. We just came off of CPAC. We had over 1,000 college Republicans in town. We were lucky enough to host some of these presidential candidates at some of our events. And there was a real sense of excitement about these senators and these governors and these other leaders who have enacted bold reforms themselves.
But so this guy wasn't at your event, was he? Of course, you didn't invite him. You didn't know he was running, right?
We didn't have him at our event, but I will say that the the college Republicans in general were really excited to see some of the faces that we had up there.
Guys, thank you very much. You give me enormous hope for the future of this country. These are the three people we're kind of